How's it going, Kip?
Hey, buddy. How you doing, man?
Good, good. Sorry about, I guess we got a little rough connection issue here, but now we seem to be straightened away, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. No problem.
Where are you in the world right now, the most traveling man in all of country music?
Man, I'm in Savannah, Georgia at the moment. I came to see I was surfing in Folly Beach in South Carolina, and then I'm making my way down the whole coast. I'm stopped at a buddy of mine's house, and I'm in his laundry room at the moment where the reception is the best.
The life on the road. That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
How'd you get into, I got to ask, like, how you got into surfing? Because you're from Georgia originally, right? Is there a big surf culture?
Yeah, not a lot of waves in Georgia, right? To be honest, I wanted to be Bodie. I watched Point Break, my late teens, and I've always wanted to try it, and it was just something I was always drawn to, seeing videos of Kelly Slater when I was a little kid, and I just never had any opportunity to do it. I lived in South Georgia where there was nothing, so when I started touring and I was able to put a little bit of money in my pocket, I booked the trip to Costa Rica one night, and just stayed for probably 9 or 10 days and surfed all day, every day, and fell in love with it. And ever since then, it's just become such a part of my life. And I'm always trying to plan touring around surfing and when I can go and when the waves are great. And, I take off every winter now for 2 months. I started doing that 4 years ago and trying to invest enough ample time to really take my surfing to another level. So I love it. I love everything about it. I love what it does for my spirit, my soul. And yeah.
Have you had a chance to surf with Kelly Slater yet?
No, I mean, I don't need to. It's not like, that's something that I'm itching to do. I just love the purity of it myself. I mean, I can go by myself and find the same magic in it. I mean, I have the utmost respect for what he does, but, it's kind of like, guys like Dylan and Springsteen being my heroes. I don't need to do a show with them. I love watching them do what they do, and that's good enough for me.
For sure. I asked because Kenny Chesney's buddies with Kelly Slater. I know they hang out a lot up here, so I didn't know if it was a country music community that we didn't know, the subculture surfing up here.
I'm buddies with a lot of guys that are big pro surfers, and I get to go with them. And I got to surf with Albie Lair this past winter, and that's plenty good enough for me. I don't need to surf with Slater after surfing with Albie. Watching him do his thing was just incredible to see up close. So I'm good, man. I can just appreciate it from afar.
I'm sure our SoCal listeners will appreciate the surfing roots, because that's not something you hear about a country artist doing every day. So we love that.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I was surfing Honolulu Bay with Albie this past winter, and I've got all different kind of boards out there. But usually when I'm surfing the bay, I'm on a 6'3" Hypto Crypto that's like 29, 30 liters. And I've got some 6 foot boards, some 6'1", some 5'10", but I've never really been on anything under that. I happened to forget the day that the bay was really firing. It was double overhead. It was insane. I've never been on waves more than 8 foot faces, and I forgot that I'd changed my fins and I'd taken my board out of my truck. And so we drive all the way to the bay in separate rides, and I follow him, and we get there, and I realize that I've forgotten my board, and it's on the biggest day that I've ever been in, and where it's pretty much cleaned out the whole lineup. And he says, well, I got a board for you, and it's a 5'6", 22-liter potato chip. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? So it was crazy. I paddled out there with him, and we were laughing the whole way. I was like, this is insane. I'm about to try this on this board, so yeah.
How'd it go?
Man, what's funny is he's had a brain injury from surfing Jaws. So he was, at that point, he was just kind of getting back into surfing, and he's still having symptoms of the brain injury. And so he was out there in a helmet, and we're paddling out, and it's just huge sets rolling through. And we get to the last one, and he's like, dig, because we can see it coming. And we barely make it, and we duck and dive, and when we come out the other side, he's he looks at me all wide-eyed and he's like, man, I shouldn't be out here right now. And I said, what? You know, like, for you to tell me that you shouldn't be out here, then I dang sure shouldn't be out here, you know? So, but I ended up catching one. I waited a good 20 minutes to get my feel, and I ended up catching one. And I've just never been on anything so steep and so fast. And I rode it, you know, I felt beautiful, man. I mean, I was able to grab a couple big lips and came out the backside, and everybody was hooting and hollering, you know, and I thought I was a dead man. I mean, it was just like, so I was able to get a good 3 or 4 in that set and get my first barrel, and it was amazing day.
That sounds pretty special. And are you an adrenaline junkie, or is it what draws you to surfing? Because you're also, obviously, you got into rock climbing. I want to talk about your new documentary, which is awesome, 7 Days of the Rock. But you're talking about falling when you're rock climbing. And I'm like, is this guy just a total adrenaline junkie? What's the story here?
Not for me. I mean, I think it's much more a spiritual thing for me. I think it's you know, I'm not like somebody that's seeking death-defying things, or, but I like to feel that pressure of putting your body and your spirit, like everything, your mind, in uncomfortable situations. Even like that day paddling out. And that was probably a little overboard. That was probably borderline just stupid. But I ended up working out in my favor. But that's what makes the spirit feel alive. And that's what I'm always chasing. I feel like the minute that you quit feeding your heart, you know, your soul, those kind of things, that eagerness and that zest to feel like a kid, to tap into that true, like, innocent, childlike joy. Like, we all have happy moments when we get into adulthood. But to tap into that purest form of innocent joy is so elusive. And for me, I'm constantly checking. Surfing gives me that every time I go out. So for me, it's worth all the elements of the danger of the reef, you know, of sharks, like everybody talks about. I get to tap into something when I'm out there that most people, once you get past 13, you never see again. And for me, that's worth every risk in the world for me, because that's the only purpose to me in living, is to feel that feeling inside, you know. So surfing, when I tackled that late in life, it gave me that. And rock climbing gives me a sense of that too. Snowboarding, skateboarding, you know, those kind of things just give you that kind of on edge thing of something bad could go wrong here, but it's worth it, because there's such an elated feeling when you do it right, and you achieve what you're trying to achieve. And it takes such a focus. You know, when you're dropping in on a wave like that, you know, you have to have 100% focus. And the same thing with climbing, if you're going to pull it off. There's so much going into that, and there's such a spiritual feeling that you get from it.
So do you look now to those sports and those experiences as a way to get those feelings back? And because you didn't mention performing, and I have to assume that performing must bring kind of a level of that intensity and that feeling and letting go. And actually, one of your idols that you just mentioned, Bruce Springsteen, coined the term. I think he calls it being hyper alive when you're up on stage.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that there's a certain sense of electricity that goes through your body when you're having like a really euphoric show. And it's a scientific thing. You release all these endorphins as an entertainer. You know, I've never done certain drugs that release those endorphins, but they say that when you do certain things, certain types of drugs, that's why your body is so empty the next day, because you release the chemical endorphins, you know, the dopamine in your brain and stuff. And when you're performing, you're releasing that. And so it's an ultimate high that you're at. And not for the kids to talk about drugs. I'm just relating to, you know, things. But anyways.
It's science. We're good.
So, yeah, science, man. But I've always, you know, through my career, I was always trying to understand why I was so kind of lifeless the next day after a show. And then once I started studying up on it, I understand that it's actually a chemical thing that happens within your brain. That's why what we do is such an unnatural existence. That's why I've struggled throughout my career with things like depression and those kinds of things, because there's such a joy that it gives you, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And it's my passion, and I'm so blessed to be able to do it. And I'm so grateful. But there is a price that comes with it when you're touring 100 shows, 120, 130 shows in a year. And you're at the highest, lowest. It's an everyday roller coaster. It really can mess with you internally. So for me, though, once again, it goes back to that thing of even knowing that the joy that you get to bring people and the joy that those people bring you, it's such a spiritual kind of feeling that you keep going after and you keep tapping into it and you keep searching for it.
I really appreciate your honesty in sharing that. That was definitely insight that we don't always get to hear from artists. So that was very cool of you to share it. Thank you.
I try not to be a robot for you guys, man, you know?
We appreciate that for sure. Well, let's talk about your new album, and everything that you just described has perfectly led up to the name of the album, which is Wild World. I have to assume that kind of Wild World is a result of all your travel and these experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like each record that I do, you know, I was doing an interview before this and they were just talking about the depth of this record. And maybe that's why everybody's really gravitating to it so much. And was it a cognitive thing on my end to really try to go even deeper? And I'm like, for me, it wasn't. It's just a matter of that's the way each record has gone for me. Like I've stayed very true to who I am at that moment in time when I'm writing a record. I'm not a guy that's trying to hold on to the success. Okay, I got to do another Hey Pretty Girl because Hey Pretty Girl was so successful, or whatever's happening in pop culture. I'm not trying to stay relative per se. I'm just writing what is authentic to me musically and internally at that time in my life. So when that happens, there's a growth in the music because I'm always growing and I'm evolving and I'm learning about who I am as a person. I'm always trying to figure out who I am, what makes me tick. And I think during the making of this record, there was a definite kind of spiritual search for me, and you know, being the introvert that I am, that's forced to be an extrovert every day and traveling nonstop and seeing all these beautiful places, but having that desire for simplicity. It was so elusive for me, the joy in that simplicity, the search for faith and where my faith lies and what that looks like to me, and digging up those really old bones that you carry around for years because of the travel, the weight, the regret, the people that you let down, and then facing those and trying to make peace with them. I think there was a lot of that, like a lot of search for peace, simplicity throughout this record. So it seems to be like really resonating and hitting hard for a lot of people.
Well, and you've posted so many videos too. You speak of simplicity, and you've posted so many videos of you performing acoustically with different musicians too. And you're saying, you know, it might just be one take, and that is just authentic and simple, which I think really resonates with the listener. For us, you're not catching something that's overproduced. You can focus on the musicianship and the lyrics. How was that for you as an artist to really just showcase raw talent in that way?
Well, I think for me, it was more about the song for me than anything. It was like, okay, first off, I love it when you can take a song down to its essentials and watch how a song can speak completely different than what you tracked it as. Because I do that a lot of times when I'm tracking, I'm thinking of the live element of the show. And I'm just thinking how to match the music with the essentials of the song, but taking it to a whole nother level. So I love stripping it down. And not like the one take, the one mic, that was all important for me, because even like there was in the California desert, we're singing, it's 35 degrees outside. It's freezing. So not only you're battling those elements, but in when you're outside, there's no natural reverb, there's no lushness, everything gets stripped out. So it is truly at its rawest, barest form. And if the song can still stand on its own 2 feet in that setting, then you know that you have something. And that was kind of what we were, you know, kind of trying to portray, and, you know, also in a unique way to promote a record. We're always trying to think of another way to get people to listen.
I mean, it was fantastic. And as you say, it was completely stripped down. The songs definitely stand up. Are there any other sleeper songs on this album, or not sleeper songs necessarily, but ones that we should check out immediately? The album's out now. What do you have a favorite at the moment? I'm sure they're all your babies, but
you know, the 2 songs that there's 2 or 3 that it just seems like my inbox is always flooded with different people's Instagram stories is Paying Hard, Fire and Flame, and Janie Blue. You know, it's been those 3 consistently that everybody's talking about the most.
Love it. And any in particular that are closest to your heart?
Yeah, I would say Paying Hard is the most personal song that I've ever written.
Love it. Well, we are looking forward to seeing you perform live. You must have channeled little Bruce Springsteen for your live shows. I've seen you perform several times. The energy you bring is insane. I remember at one point
Thank
I saw
you,
a show, and I don't even know if you'd planned on it beforehand because security had no idea, but you just bolted off stage straight up into the crowd and just kept rocking out.
I never know when I'm gonna do it. I haven't done it probably in a good year, but it's just one of those things where when the spirit moves me, I go with it.
It was such a cool moment. You're a fantastic performer, fantastic artist. The album is awesome. It's called Wild World. It's available now. Kip Moore, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time. We appreciate it.
Take care, bro. Be easy.
You too.
Go Country 105. Go Country 105.